my mom started getting neuropathy in her 30s. I mean, very, very early on. And she could not feel her feet for 35 years. Literally could feel nothing. We would walk around theme parks as a kid. She would take off her shoes and her feet were completely bloody. I'll never forget, I was at her house and she was outside gardening or something, walking around the pool deck, came back in and she was all frazzled. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "My feet are burning." She goes, "I haven't felt my feet walking around the pool deck in decades." And now her burning. And it was just like this light went off. And this is another, these are non invasive treatments that woke up damage that had been dormant for 35 years. Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing treatments.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Troy with Everything Disc. We're excited you're tuned in today to our podcast. I have a special guest with me, Holly Herndon from HGH Consultants, and she'll tell you a little bit about that. But Holly, I'm excited you're on our show today. You know, I've been working with you for a number of years with some Facebook, and, you know, you've helped our team be better at serving our patients with people who come in with disc problems, how to help them get the care they need, show us different things. So I'm really excited to have you on our show today and get your perspective. So I just want to welcome you to our podcast, Everything Disc today.
Thank you so much for
And
having
you
me.
are very welcome. I know we had some technical issues getting live, and so good things always come to those who wait. So, a little bit about me. I got injured, about 15 years ago. I had a disc herniation. Actually, I had three of them and two disc tears. That's what got me into non-surgical spinal decompression. And then there was a company that you are working with, and you started helping us in our clinic become better at what we do. And I know you've been doing this for a good decade or so. You got a long history in outreach to patients and getting patients in clinics. So I'm really excited to hear what got you into this and why you do what you do. And if there's doctors listening, if there's patients listening that have disc issues, really what can we do as doctors to be better at our craft so we can get more people better, help them avoid surgery, help them avoid medications that may not be necessary or harmful to their body, and really just get people's qualities of life back. So, Holly, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about what you do and why you do what you do.
Goodness, how much time do you have?
We got all day.
Well, I'll tell you how I got into this. I've literally been in marketing, and I'm about to date myself, but I've been in marketing since I was about 19. I literally back in the 90s used to drive around one of those radio station vans and have people spin the prize wheel for bumper stickers. I mean, that's literally how I got started in marketing. And
Love
I
it.
did sorts of different industries, but never medical and never chiropractic. And several years back, my CrossFit trainer of all people, he came to me and he said, "Hey, Holly, you know, I'm opening this clinic. It's an integrative clinic with my neighbor who's an ER doc. She wants to get out of the ER and, help people with alternative therapies. We're going to open this clinic together. Will you open it, market it, and help me run it?" And I said, "Quinn, I've never been in medical in my life." I said, "I have no experience in this whatsoever." And he said, "Yeah, I don't care. You're smart. You'll figure it out."
Yeah.
So what did I do? I figured it out. I helped him open this integrative medical clinic. They specialized in bioidentical hormone therapy and regenerative medicine. We opened it and it ended up being one of the most successful clinics in the country, especially on the West Coast. And then I kind of went, "Hey, I've got a knack for this." And so I opened up that clinic, opened up a couple more, got into neuropathy clinics, spinal decompression, and I was working in clinic to open new clinics, train their staff, and basically train them on the fact that a lot of these modalities are not going to be covered by insurance. How do we convince the patient that it's worth the investment in their health? And
Yes.
that started, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah. And I, just our experience, I mean, you've helped my team bridge that gap and you always say patients are passive. And I can tell, my story with my heart. And one of the nurses that when I was in the ICU, and I knew this, because I've been in practice helping people and I just forgot to take care of myself. But she said to me, she said, and me and my wife, she sat down with us, she said, "You have to be an advocate for your own health." And so, with what you've been teaching us and my staff is listen, patients are passive, they're overwhelmed, they're busy in life. You got to be their health guy, their guru, if you will. You got to take them and lead them down the path. And so, some of the things that you trained us and taught us is like, here's how you get patients to engage and take care of them. Because really, I mean, that's what got me into this profession is because I got helped and I want to help people. But we get caught up in the day to day stuff. We forget that, hey, we're in a practice. We're all human and we're all busy. And so the things you've taught us have really helped us be able to reach more people. One, and then also the big thing is to keep them consistent with the treatment that we recommended for them. And I think that's where you've shined for us is helping our team go, hey, look, we're here to help these people get better. And these are the techniques or the methods that will help patients get the best results.
Exactly, and that's the biggest obstacle that I've found is these treatment protocols, treatment plans. These are 12 treatment, 24 treatment, sometimes 36 treatment plans, and the mentality of healthcare, people think they can go in once, something's gonna be given to them to fix them, and then they're gonna leave, but that's not what this is. These type of alternative therapies, you're allowing your body to heal itself with your help. And people don't understand that that takes time. And, humans are creatures of habit. They don't want to mess with their current routine and they don't want to just add something to their schedule. And so people come in, and honestly, the number one reason that people don't do these kinds of things is not the money, but it's the time,
Mhm.
it's the adding something else to their schedule. And so you have to know how to make this worthwhile for them. How do you motivate them to want to do this and make that commitment with their time?
Yeah, when you bring up the time thing, I had a patient the other day, 30 years. This person's been abusing their body. You can imagine they're inflamed. Some people say they're overweight. So they've been doing things that create inflammation, and then they do activities that are stressful, and then they're in chronic pain, and they've tried all kinds of things. And they come into us and they think we're going to part the Red Sea in one visit. And I said, look, it's going to take time. I don't know if you've seen that movie Super Size Me where the guy eats 3 meals
McDonald's.
a day at McDonald's for 30 days, gains 56 pounds, and by week 2, the doctor said, "You gotta stop doing what you're doing or you're gonna die." And he went 30 days, 56 pounds overweight, had all these health issues. All the blood tests were positive, he could be on all the meds. And the takeaway from that, and I tell patients this, I go, "How long did it take for him to get back to his normal weight?" Took him 14 months of being consistent, not doing the things that got him where he was doing. And I said, it just takes time. And nerves are the slowest thing to heal, whether it's a disc and you've got sciatica or it's nerve pain, neuropathy type symptoms. These things, don't just show up overnight. They take time to heal.
Yeah.
And so what from your perspective, what are some things you tell doctors and even patients to help them overcome that barrier of, I agree with you. It's not the money, it's the commitment and they get influenced by other people. What do you tell doctors? What do you tell patients if they come in and they're presented with a disc treatment plan or even a neuropathy treatment plan or sometimes knee treatment plans? What do you tell them?
Yeah. Well, basically, the number one thing that you want to tell them is what the consequences are going to be if they don't do this now. And for if it's a disc issue, they're going to get to the point where they've deteriorated so much that surgery is their only option. And all they know about back surgery is, oh, yeah, my insurance is going to cover it. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to go in and be fine. Well, no, you're not. You're going to still be in pain after back surgery. It doesn't actually help much with the pain, and then you're going to end up needing more surgeries down the road. Back surgery or neck surgery is not all that effective. And so they don't understand these consequences. Or for someone with neuropathy, peripheral neuropathy, gosh, if they deteriorate so far, they might end up with an amputation. And they realize that, oh, I can just deal with the tingling in my feet. It's no big deal. I can deal with the wound. Well, sure, you can deal with that now. But what's going to happen a couple of years down the line if you don't make these changes now? And that's what they need to understand is what can happen to them if they don't nip this in the bud and reverse that damage.
Yeah. There's an office next to our clinic that sells medical equipment, walkers, compression socks, canes, chairs for people with mobility issues, scooters. And the lady that's the manager there, she comes to see me, and we talk about this all the time. She's like, I go, you see the end stage of what happens to these people. They come in, they get a scooter, they lose their back, they lose their legs, and then they lose their freedom, and then they're bound in a wheelchair forever. And so, sometimes it's hard to, like for me with my heart thing, when I went into VTAC and they defib me, it was like Mike Tyson punched me in the face and knocked me out. And unfortunately, sometimes that's what's got to happen to people for them to wake up. But I always like to tell my story because it's like, let's not get knocked out by Mike Tyson because some people don't wake up
Mm.
or, they don't come back from a surgery. I had a guy that lived in Maui, had a back surgery and came to see us and he started getting worse. And I'm like, oh man, what we do wrong? We didn't do anything wrong. The surgery created an infection that decompression wasn't treating. So he had to go back, get antibiotics, he got fixed up with the antibiotics. And then we started decompressing him and all his back pain had gone away and he was able to win took second place in his club championship at golf, which is kind of a cool story. But these are the things that we see. So, what other recommendations would you have for patients if they're presented with a decompression or a neuropathy or even a knee pain care plan in one of our clinics?
First, do your research. Know what you're getting into and know what the alternatives are. So once you find out what your diagnosis is, do research and find these therapies that are non-invasive. Because the number one problem that you probably encounter is people don't know these things exist. All they know is what their primary care what their orthopedic told them. So do your research. If you find out that there's something wrong with you, if you get a diagnosis, if you have back pain, if you have tingling in your feet, there are alternatives out there. Don't go with just what your primary care doctor told you what to do, and don't go with what your insurance company told you what to do either. Do your research.
Yeah.
Find out the alternatives because
Well,
they exist.
yeah, I mean, that's what I tell people. I'm like, I see them. They come in, and you see this all the time. We've talked about it. They have back pain or sciatica or foot pain. They go to their medical doctor, and then they prescribe them some medication. That doesn't work. They give them more. Then they might do some PT, and they might do some injections, and then if that doesn't work, then it's maybe they might say acupuncture, which that's fine. That's non-invasive, and then it's a surgery, and that's we always see that. They don't always say, "Hey, go to this disc center." They try that first before surgery. I have so many patients tell me, "Why didn't they tell me this?" I'm like, "That's because that's what's covered on your insurance." And so, I don't know if United Healthcare has the best, or whatever insurance company it is, has the best focus for getting you healthy. That's really the thing is how can we restore function? How can we get you healthy and, not have some side effects that come with these back surgeries or the medications?
And unfortunately, because they're not being educated on the things that their insurance company tells them are okay, they don't understand that it's not reversing the damage. It's basically a Band-Aid. It's gonna help with the pain, it's gonna help with the inflammation. Sure, let's give you some shots. We'll give you a set of 3 shots, and yeah, you're gonna be out of pain for a while. But that's not fixing you. You're still gonna continue to deteriorate to where you have to get back surgery. And then they think, "Oh, sure, I'll get back surgery and it's gonna fix everything." And no, it's not. You're still gonna be in pain. So they need to understand that there's not just alternative therapies out there for pain, there's actually things you can do to reverse that damage to avoid that surgery altogether. And that's what we
Mhm.
want to do is help people avoid those surgeries, help people avoid those harmful medications that they might be on for their entire life. That's why we do this. And so we need to educate and make sure people know that these things are available.
Yeah. And if you're working with a doctor, let's say, who, has struggled to really get people to cross the barrier into, let's call it a holistic approach or a natural approach. What are some things you find that doctors have a hard time bridging that gap from, here's what we recommend, whether it's, 4 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks of a routine to help them improve. What are some things that kind of trip up the doctors on not bridging that gap with the patient so that they can start care?
The number one thing is easy. It's basically the doctors are care providers. These are medical professionals that are offering the best plan of care for whatever this patient's condition happens to be. What they have never been trained to do is convince someone to do it if it's not covered by their insurance. And so
Hmm.
that becomes the biggest obstacle is they just they're very used to saying this is what you need, and unfortunately this is what it's going to cost because your insurance doesn't cover it. Not person to say, "What? Why doesn't my insurance do this? What's going on? My insurance should cover this. I pay all this money. Why?" These are medical professionals. These are not salespeople. These are not people trained to do this. All they're trying to do is get people the best care possible, and they're
Yeah.
not prepared for that roadblock of the insurance, which is the biggest problem.
Yeah. And I know you work with doctors to help them find ways to help the patients work out a financial plan. And that's what you've been great with us is, it's been a game changer for us because we have different ways, whether it's financing, interest-free financing for a while to get these people care. And there may be some insurance benefits, and people don't know until we really dive into it. There may be a little bit of benefit, but I've found it's never usually covered 100%. Even back surgery is not covered 100%.
Nope.
I had an MRI of my heart and it was $4,000 and I got a bill the other day for $800 just for an MRI.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, but I have my wife's like, you have insurance. I'm like, yeah, I'm paying $1,000 a month for insurance. I have a $10,000 deductible.
Yeah.
It's going to cost me $24,000 a year before the insurance will even pay a dime that we spend out of pocket. And I went, wow, just think if I didn't pay that and I saved 24 grand a year, I don't think I'm spending that much in healthcare with my whole family.
Yep. And one that the patients don't understand is when you are going to get an insurance covered surgery. And every time I say insurance covered, I kind of do this, but it's an insurance covered surgery. They have to establish a pattern of care. They have to show the insurance company that they've exhausted absolutely every other option. They've paid the money into the copays and the deductibles and everything else for all of these things that aren't fixing the underlying issue. So what happens is they end up spending more money on an insurance covered surgery than they would on a treatment plan that's going to help them avoid the surgery altogether. And that's
Yeah.
what doctors need to communicate with those patients because not only are they going to be spending less money, they're going to avoid surgery, you're going to fix them. And that's what they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, it's interesting, but really the bottom line is there's so many people out there who are suffering that could benefit from like non-surgical spinal decompression. The success rate's anywhere from 88 to 92%, depending on which study you read. And there's no side effects from it. There's no scar, there's no downtime. It's just, a lot of people come in and they say it's a miracle what you guys do. But that's why I do podcasts is to get out there and educate people and spread the word on how you and I can help not only doctors be better doctors, but how can we bridge that gap from patients beginning care and not just focused on what their insurance policy may or may not cover.
Exactly. And what one thing that I remember saying to patients when I was in clinic, I would always say to them, "Isn't it amazing that a treatment that is this non-invasive, that is this painless, is going to fix that disc? Isn't that amazing?" Because guess what? It is amazing. This is an amazing treatment that didn't exist decades ago that a lot of people don't know about. My gosh, does it work? I've watched it work so
Yeah.
many people just don't know that it's there.
Yeah. And it's like a tenth of the cost of a back surgery
Mhm.
or even less than that, depending on the complications and things. So pretty amazing. I'll tell you, and I don't know if I told you this, but my father-in-law, he had foot pain. He was losing his balance and he's, family's always tough to get him to do something. And I kept telling him, hey, we've got this protocol that can help your nerve pain, your neuropathy type symptoms in your feet. And of course, the doctors want to prescribe him Lyrica. And it took me about 4 months of just talking to him. I said, if you're not committed, he doesn't like to spend money. I mean, my father-in-law, if you met him, he wears cutoffs, drives an old, 1960 Honda because he doesn't like to spend money. Good guy, but he's just like he likes to keep his money. And I said, if you're not going to follow the protocol, don't waste your money. I gave him all the supplements, everything it costs. I go, this is my cost. And it took him about 3, 4 months. And he said, okay, I'm gonna do it. And he finally did it. And after 6 months, getting his balance back. He's walking again. His feet were blue. You'd look at him and he looks like a good looking athlete, but he's in his 80s. And it looked like he was diabetic in his feet. He's not diabetic, but it looked that way. His feet were swollen. That's all gone now. And he's like, I have only missed 2 days, and that's because I traveled. So in over 6 months, the guy missed two treatments that he was doing most of this at home. And so, my father-in-law, the toughest guy on the planet that I can imagine as a patient, is getting results because these protocols and these treatments work.
Well, exactly. My mom's the exact same way. My mom started getting neuropathy in her 30s. I mean, very,
Mm,
very early on. And she could not feel her feet for 35 years.
mm.
Literally could feel nothing. We would walk around theme parks as a kid. She would take off her shoes and her feet were completely bloody because she
Oh,
couldn't. She had blisters from walking around theme parks. So when I got into the industry and started working in these neuropathy clinics, I said, Mom, come on, come be a guinea pig, I'll get you a discount, whatever it is, just come get help. And she did not believe that this was going to work, but she thought she was helping me out by coming into one of my new clinics and being a testimonial. She came in, and I'll never forget, I was at her house and she was outside gardening or something, walking around the pool deck. Came back in and she was all frazzled. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "My feet are burning." She goes, "I haven't felt my feet walking around the pool deck in decades." And now
wow.
her burning. And it was just like this light went off. And this is another, these are non invasive treatments that woke up damage that had been dormant for 35 years. Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing treatments.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, this is why we get on, this is why I do podcasts and work with you, is because I want to see more people get these results. Because people are waking up. They come in to the office all the time. They're like, I don't want to take any more medication. I don't want another surgery. And even talk to the doctors in the healthcare field. They're a lot of them are starting to to patients about diet and nutrition, which Thomas Edison said that the doctor of the future will interest his care patient in the care of the human frame, diet,
Yep.
nutrition, exercise. And I'm like, that's really the future of this is how do we take care of ourselves? So not only can we reduce, issues that we have, but have longevity into our 80s, 90s, even hundreds.
I mean,
And that's really the goal.
it's the whole philosophy of integrative medicine. Take care of yourself from the inside out. Treat absolutely everything that could possibly be wrong to give you the best lifestyle you can possibly have. And those things that you love to do. People come, oh gosh, so many of my clinics, and we would say, why didn't you come in sooner? Why didn't you do something about this? And they said, oh, it's fine. It's part of aging, or I can live with it. It's not that big. I can live with it. And I would say, but you don't have to live with it. You can feel better. And people need to know they do not have to live with this pain.
Yeah. And I've had so many people go to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they kind of lose faith in the process. So that's really what it's all about, is really being their guru to say, "This can work, just let me guide you." And I always like what you tell us. You're like, because a lot of people, if you recommend like 3 months of care, I like what you say. You're like, "Let's start with 2 weeks, maybe a 4-week trial. You're gonna need 3 months or whatever time frame it is, but let's start with a short test run. We're gonna know if you're gonna improve." And I like that approach because some people are overwhelmed by this. "Oh, I got to do this for 3 months." Hey, let's start with a couple weeks and then just see where we're at. Give us a shot. Because if you don't do something, you'll never get the results.
Yeah, and we'll know. We'll know after a few treatments, is this working? Yes, it is. And so let the person decide if they want to go on with the treatment plan because, yeah, it's not the money, it's time commitment. And what they'll realize after a few treatments is this is an amazing thing. And of course, yeah.
Yeah. So if there was patients out there suffering, what would you tell them to do? If they've got a disc issue or a neuropathy problem, what would you tell them to do? Where would you tell them to start?
First tell them to do the research in the area, looking for someone that is doing real spinal decompression therapy,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
traction. There's a big difference. Do your research. It's general traction and spinal decompression are not the same thing. IDD spinal
Correct.
therapy targets your herniated disc. It actually targets your specific diagnosis, opens that disc back up, lets those fluids back in, all those nutrient rich fluids, and it heals that disc. Whereas traction just kind of pulls you, and we'll see what happened. It can help with some pain. But do your research. Make sure this is a credible doctor in the area doing real spinal decompression. and then make a consultation appointment. It doesn't hurt to go in and find out more. Do your research. Don't ever
Hmm.
just your primary care doctor's word for it. Don't ever just hear, okay, I need surgery. Advocate for yourself. It's like we are saying
Yeah.
before. There are alternatives. Find out what they are. But just know spinal decompression is the only thing that is going to correct that damage.
Hmm.
That's what I first.
You see the results. And if there was a doctor struggling, whether it's with, getting patients to begin care with the treatment they recommend, or even team members that are kind of not on the same mission, what would you tell those doctors if they were watching us today? What would you tell them, about what you do and how you may be able to help them with their team, with care plans, with getting patients to, follow through with, their specific recommendations? Because that's in every doctor's heart. And I went through my heart thing, and all the doctors, all the nurses, everybody, I felt they all had a desire to help me. And and I know deep down inside, any doctor that's working with you or listening, they probably have that same desire. So what would you tell them if they're struggling and they were just kind of feel like they're banging their head against the wall?
The first thing that I tell every single client is that I never want you to compromise your medical integrity. I always want you to give that patient the best plan of care for their needs. And then what I do is I teach them how to communicate that to the patient. So many doctors that feel bad that insurance doesn't cover these things or doesn't fully cover these things, where they start giving smaller treatment plans or taking out treatment out of the plan just to get the price down for someone. But
Yeah,
that's compromising your medical integrity. You have to tell them this is what's going to heal you. And then I teach them how to communicate that and say, let's make it work for the patient. How do you make it work? What, alternatives do you give them? How do you convince them that it's worth that investment? Because I want my
yeah,
doctors, not salespeople, and it's a big
right.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that, and that's one thing you helped us out with is like, don't be so salesy. Not
Mhm.
that we were, but we'd have patients say it feels like I'm buying a used car. And my wife had been to some different doctors, and the way you approach it and teach, our financial people to present it, it's more like, oh, this is actually medical. It's not a sales thing. And that's something that's been around in the industry for a long time. And so I appreciate that. Anything else you want to tell our listeners today? Because I have one special question I'm going to ask you at the end. You don't know what it is yet, but I'm still going to ask it. I always love to ask all my guests this question. But anything else you would tell our listeners today that might help them?
If you are experiencing back pain, neck pain, tingling in your hands and feet, any of these symptoms, don't wait. Get to a doctor that can help you with these symptoms. Do your research. Reverse that damage while you can so you can get that quality of life back. It's not something that you have to live with. That's the number one thing that I would want patients to know. You don't have to live in, there is help available.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Well, I mean, I think we unpacked a lot today. We could probably talk another 3, 4 hours about this stuff,
Oh,
and
yeah,
maybe we'll do another show in the future. That come up. Oh, I really want to talk about this next time. But
I love that.
with that being said, let me ask you this. You know what? I like to golf,
Yes.
and I haven't told you this yet, but my daughter and I we just played in a tournament. It was a parent child tournament. We actually took first place, which I'm super proud. My daughter's 12, and
Congrats.
it was really cool experience. And she's like, Dad, what are we gonna do with the trophy? So it's sitting over here. This is actually in my studio. We have a golf area. It's sitting over there. So we're super proud of that. But okay, so that's cool. But I don't know if you golf. I don't think we've talked too much about this, but I want your perspective. If somebody wanted to golf and somebody loved golf, what would be one tip you could give them from your perspective? One thing, one tip.
Okay, so let me preface this by saying I don't golf. Not because I don't love the game, but because I'm god awful at it. I'm really, really. I
You're probably a better golfer than me. So
I mean, I grew up around golf. My dad was in the industry. I know the game back and forth. I used to live on Hilton Head, by Sea Pines.
yeah.
I love golf. Love it, love it, love it, but I'm terrible. So I love to watch it. But what what I would tell people is Remember, it's just a game. If you are not a professional golfer, you're supposed to be out there having fun. It's just a game. How many times have I seen it get into a guy's head? They make one bad shot and it ruins the entire round.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, yeah.
let it roll off your back. Forget about it. One shot did not affect your entire day. Remember, you're there to have fun.
Yeah. And see, that's why I always like asking non-golfers, "What's the tip?" And I always tell I play with these guys and they get upset and, all kinds of things happen, and I just look at them and go, "Hey, dude, we're just out here having fun. We're going for a walk. Just have fun." I mean, I almost died. That's my perspective. I almost died. "I almost died. I'm just happy to be out here in the beautiful grass and walking. We'll just have fun."
Yes.
And so great advice.
I'm a vicarious golfer. I live through other golfers. I understand. I know it. But yeah, if anything, yeah, don't let it mess up your day. One shot. You're there to, you took the time to do this, you paid the money to do it. Have
Yeah.
fun. Have some
Have fun.
drinks.
Dr. Kaplan with Dissenters of America.
Real.
So I interviewed him the first time I did a podcast. I interviewed him, this is the first question I asked anybody. First time on camera, I go, "Dr. Kaplan, what would be one tip you'd give our golfers?" You know what he said to me? He said, "Don't start. If you're not golfing, don't start." He said, "Because it's addicting." And I
Yep.
go, "True." So I'm hooked. So Holly, don't start, but thank you for your insight, and that was brilliant. So. Well, good. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, and I know we had some technical stuff with your power going off, so I'm glad we finally linked up to get this show done, and I appreciate you. And in our show notes, we'll put your HGH consultants in there, so if people want to find you, they can look up your information on your website. If there's any doctors out there, I tell you, if you're struggling in practice and you need some guidance, Holly's a great resource. She can help you with all kinds of things, whether it's marketing or, helping patients bridge that gap between insurance and care. So she's been great with us. So thanks again, Holly, for your time.
My pleasure.
And
Thanks for
I
having
look
me.
forward to, yeah, it's been great. I look forward to working with you more in the future. And so if anybody has any information, they want to share, please leave that in our show notes. And this is Dr. Troy with Everything Disc. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks again, Holly.